Hello and welcome to another course from LevelUp Networks. As discussed in our previous tutorial, today we're going to concentrate on group policies. We are going to partition our drive and create a few file shares. So we're going to share some folders and have them accessible to our users according to the permissions that we set up in the previous tutorial. Okay, let's get started. So I've loaded up already our server. So let's just have a little recap. So we installed and configured Active Directory. We created a few staff members, as you recall, probably an admin and a few security groups. Now I went ahead and I created some additional security groups. I created the share drive and access to the finance drive. And in terms of the staff members, I've put a description to their current title for each of them. So now we have one marketing executive, one financial controller, and one customer service executive. Okay, so let's start off by just partitioning our drive. So this works exactly like it does on Windows 10. So I shall open Windows Explorer. Now, if you recall from the first tutorial we did a virtual image of approximately 100 gigabytes for our operating system. So at the moment, we've used just roughly about 20 gigs, 16 gigs. So we're going to partition this drive and just create a very small share drive just for demonstration purposes and create shares, and then we will assign the security groups, and then we shall play with group policy a little bit so we can see how the users will get their different drives. Right, so if we go to this PC, we right click it and we go to Manage, this will open our server manager. And from here we can go to Tools and we need to go to Computer Management. So let's go there. So from Computer Management, this is where you would manage a few things. For example, the share folders we're going to create later. But in this case, we are going to go for disk management. So you can see here are two partitions within the drive. So the first one is the system reserve, which is what Windows setups when you first install Windows Server. And here is our C drive. So we are going to shrink this volume in order to create another drive. So let's just so we select the C drive, we right click it, and we're going to go to shrink volume. So more or less here, we're going to do about, 20 gigs, give or take. So let's get our calculator out, and we want 20 gigs times 1024 megabytes, which is about, well, not about, is exactly 20,480 megabytes will be our space. So 2480, which will leave our volume with 81 gigabytes, which is plenty of space for our operating system. So let's shrink it. Okay, so it has already shrunk it and it has created this partition of 20 gigabytes. Now, as you can see, it's unallocated. So we are going to create a new simple volume. So right click, new simple volume, and just pretty much follow it. So next, this will confirm the amount of space. Now, bear in mind, we put 2480, but Windows has used, I guess, 1 megabyte for administration purposes. So we go next. And here we can assign the letter we want. Now at this point, it doesn't matter. This will just be a drive within the actual server. We can then change the shared. Once we share it, we can then change the drive for the users. Like, for example, if we want to create the share drive, we can do that S, the marketing drive M, finance F, and so on. So let's press next. Now the file system will stay as NTFS, allocation will be default, and the volume label, let's call this shared drive. Now you can do a quick format. I recommend it, otherwise you might have to format it otherwise. And then here you can enable file and folder compression. Now whilst that may sound like a good idea, I tend not to select that. Reason being because there may be certain file formats that don't play well with compression and may corrupt those files. So we will leave this unticked for the time being, and we will go next. All right, this is just to confirm everything is correct. And once we do that, it's going to perform a quick format, and it's going to essentially create the E drive for us. And there it is. Okay, so that's all we need to do here. So let's go E drive, and we close this. We don't need the server manager at this stage, so I shall close it again. So now, as you can see in Windows Explorer, we have the C drive, the G drive, which is our optical drive, and the E drive. Okay, so let's go into the E drive. Now this is very important, especially if you're starting from scratch. If you are not starting from scratch and you are going to then migrate the data later, you're going to want to do some bit of housekeeping. Because the more organized you have your drives, the more organized you have your data, the easier it will be for your users. Also, you may want at some stage to migrate this server up to 365. And obviously 365 has some limitations, like for example the amount of characters a file can have, the amount of characters the whole folder structure or the hierarchy can have. So if you have a clean system, then it will be much easier in the future should you wish to expand this or upgrade things. So we're going to create essentially 3 folders. So we're going to create one folder which is just shared folder, which this folder will be literally data that all staff members can access. We will then create a finance folder, and then let's create one for sales. Okay, now I'm gonna just create a bit more of a structure here, so just bear with me. So within sales, I'm gonna create, for example, I don't know, collateral, and let's create a folder for quotes. Let's create another folder for I don't know, price, presentations. Let's say presentations. And then we're going to create another one called marketing. And you'll see why I did this. Then within shared folder, this is going to be for everyone in finance, that's for that. Okay, so we have our structure. So essentially, every user is going to have access, like I said earlier, to the shared folder. Some users will have access to finance. Other users will have access to sales. And within sales, only some users will have access to the marketing drive. Okay, so let's do this. So as you recall, let me just open Active Directory. So we've created 4 security groups. Okay, so one is the access all drives. So this was to add administrators to this access group so they could access every single drive in your file structure. And this would be handy as well, for example, for backups as well. So if you have to online backup, or if you have an on-premise backup, you would create, for example, a generic user called, I don't know, backups. And you would give, obviously, backups access to all the drives because they will need to be able to back up every single file in every single folder. And then we will have our other three ones, which are finance, marketing, and shared. Right. So let's go to the folders. So in terms of finance, we're going to go to right-click it and go to properties. We're going to go to security. Okay. And as you can see here, let me just go edit here so you can see clearer. So by default, the creator of the folder has obviously full access. The system will have full access. Then because I created as LevelUp admin the folder, I will have access. Administrators by default will have access. And then users have just the read access. Okay, so we're going to go a bit more into depth with this. So we're going to take advantage of the security groups. So let's remove everything with the exception of creator and system. So we're going to remove ourselves. Sorry, apologies. So let's cancel this. So we want to, because this will be a folder that will be only available for a certain amount of users, we need to disable the inheritance. Now, what is the inheritance? So inheritance, just as the name says, it gets all the permissions from the previous folder, which in this folder will be the main drive, and it then propagates those permissions to its child folders. Okay, so in order to disable the inheritance, we have to go to advanced. So within the properties, advanced. And as you can see here in the bottom left hand side, we have the option to disable inheritance. So let's click on this. So then you get this pop-up, which means it says if it's remove all your inherited permissions, or the first one, which is converts the inherited permissions, etc., etc. Now, what does those mean? So the first option, which is you converting, which is the one we're going to choose. This is recommended in case you make any mistakes. So essentially, it's just going to copy the existing permissions, and then you can remove them as you wish. And they'll remove all the inherited permissions just as that. So it clears into a blank slate. But you don't want to do that because you may miss something, and then you're going to block access to the system, for example, or to particular users. So let's say convert. Okay. So as you can see here, it's remained all the same. The only difference that here where it says inherited from, now it says none instead of where it was inheriting the permissions. Now we can edit things from here. I usually don't. I like to go to the previous screen because it's a bit more clear, because here, as you can see, you have to assign every little one to every user. The other one's a bit more user-friendly. So we'll press OK. So once again, we're in the finance properties. We go to edit. We're going to remove LevelUp admin. We're going to remove administrators, and we're going to remove users. Now don't hit apply here, because obviously otherwise you may lose control of the folder. Now in this case we wouldn't, because we are the creator. But if you were not the creator of the folder, and by removing yourself and administrators, you would lose complete access to the folder, and you would have to then regain it through some command prompts or PowerShell. So now we're going to add here users. So we're going to go access, check names, and we're going to give access to all drives and to the finance people. Press OK. So it puts both of them. Press OK. So to access to all drives, I give them full control. So this literally puts everything. And then access to finance drive, so the users, let's say, I just click on modify. Now, why don't I put full control? Well, because full control will also give access to special permissions. I won't get too much into them right now, but you just want to give them enough access to read and write to the folder, because some special permissions are a bit more of an administrator side of things, so you don't want to do that. So that's all we do for finance. Press OK. Press OK. OK. Let's go to a shared folder. Sharing. security. And now this one is going to be access for everybody. So literally it's users, administrators, LevelUp admin, blah, blah, blah. But let's say the backup user is not an administrator. So that would mean that as a user, it would only have read and write. Okay. Sorry, just read. So we're going to edit this. So we're going to also disable the inheritance. So as you can see here, I didn't show you before, but inherited right now is from the E drive. So let's disable inheritance, convert, OK. Right, so edit. So we're going to remove ourselves and excuse me, administrators. We're going to leave the users. So we're going to go add here, access, check names, and access to all drives. OK, and OK. So access to all drives, once again, full control. And then the users, as you can see here, they only have read permissions. So we're going to click them and give them modify. Press OK, press OK. Now in the sales drive, we're going to do a few permissions here. So if you go back to security groups, so we have here the marketing, okay, which is fine. So for the sales one, this is going to be for everyone to be able to access it in this particular organization. You may not want to do that, but I want to give you an example of how to grant access to everyone, and then if you go to a folder, how to exclude people from there. So in terms of properties, we're just going to mimic the same that we did for the shared drive. So right click properties, advanced, disable, convert, OK, edit. We remove ourselves, we remove administrators. We're going to add access to all drives. OK. We give access all drives full control, and the users we give the modify. And OK. And OK. Now, because the sales drive has children folders, so let's double click into it. So these are the children folders. So if we go to collateral, we go to properties, we go to security, okay? So you're going to see here, for example, that it's inheriting from the E drive sales, so for the previous folder. So it has access to all drives. It's included us because we're the creator. That's why it hasn't removed us. Creator, owner, and users, and they have the power to modify. So that's perfect. For the marketing drive, we just want people who have access to marketing to be able to access this. So if we go to right click, properties, security, advanced, we're going to disable the inheritance. We're going to convert it. That's okay. And then we leave everything as is because we want the people who have access to all drives. But here what we do is that we remove the users, and we're going to access the security group for access for marketing. Okay. So access to marketing drive and modify. So essentially this is going to let all the administrators and only the people that have access to marketing drive to be able to access this. Press OK and press OK. Perfect. So that's done the security side of things. So now we have to do the actual share. So with those shares, then we can go to group policies and assign particular drive letters for those. So let's go to finance, for example. Right click, properties. This is probably the easiest way. There's other ways to do it, but this is definitely the easiest way. So if you go to sharing, I like to go to advanced sharing, what you can do from share. So advanced sharing, you go share this folder. Now if you want to call it something else, you may, but you know, the folder is finance, so it puts by default here finance. And here are the permissions. Now, here you don't have to get into the security level like we did earlier. So giving everyone full control is absolutely fine, because then what it's going to do is going to have a look at the actual security permissions we did previously, and that's what it's going to take. But here, just put full control for everything. Okay, okay. And now we have here the network path, which is our server name and our shared. We close that. We'll do the same thing for sales, sharing, advanced, share this folder, permissions, full control to everyone. Okay, okay, okay. And finally, shared folder, properties, sharing, advanced sharing. Okay, so let's change the name for this one. So let's call this general data. Okay, so even though the folder is called shared folder, people are going to see this as general data. So permissions, everything. Okay, okay. So as you can see, the network path is actually general data. Press OK. Perfect. Okay, so that's our shares. Now, how can we check if the shares were done correctly, other than obviously right-clicking on it? Well, if we go to the server manager, let's just type here, actually, we have to go to computer manager. So let's go to computer management. Here it is. So now if you go to shared folders, you go to shares, you're going to see here all the shares we created. So finance, general data, and sales, where they point to. Okay. Now you also have other ones that were created by default. So the ones that have the little dollar mark after its name, that means that that particular folder or that particular shared is hidden. Okay. So users will not be able to see those. So the only ones they'll actually be able to see are the ones we created, net logon, and sysvol. So why are these visible? So these are visible because those folders are essentially where the profiles are getting stored. So for a user to be able to log into the PC to the machines, those need to be accessible by the user. But there's no data there in terms of in terms of confidentiality. This is where you put, if you want, like a login script for a particular group of people as well. You can also manage it through group policy, but if you want to do it with a batch, that's where you would put it. Okay. As this video is getting a bit long now, I'm going to split it in two parts. So the next part of the tutorial will be group policies. So I'll see you then. Thanks. To get the latest tutorials, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until then, take care.